What's up, my brothers from another mother? And again, in this video I am going to be speaking about my thoughts about the KTM Super Duke 1290R 2017 compared to the BMW S1000R 217. So guys, bit of a heads up, gonna say this now, chances are if you're watching this video you've seen maybe a couple of my other videos before, so please consider to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, and just gives me more of an incentive to keep making these videos. So I had the BMW S1000 single R maybe, how long ago? I had it about a year ago, I think, maybe 18 months ago. I owned that bike, and my last bike was a double R, but I often think about the single R a lot. I do think about the single R a lot because it is such a great bike, and obviously the Super Duke R is in that category, and it just gets me thinking, like, what would I have? Well, I've obviously got the Super Duke R, but what I mean is, like, when I look back on the R, would I get another one? You know, I haven't actually rode the new generation of the single R, the BMW, and I'm not really sure that I want to. Well, I guess that, let's start off with the first major comparison for me. God, look at this. Oh, makes me glad to be alive. Let's start off with the first major comparison for me for the single R and the KTM 1290 Duke. The first thing is the ergonomics, like the position. With this particular bike, you are much more higher. The seat height is a lot higher. You kind of, like, I'm 6'2", and with this, make sure that's wedged in. With this bike, I feel like I'm kind of sitting in it. It gives me more of a 1200 GS kind of feel, this bike, which is really comfortable. If you rode a 1200 GS, you know that it's such a comfortable bike. This gives me that same feeling of comfortableness. Is where the 1000R, the BMW 1000R, it's much lower. It kind of gives you that real sports bike feel, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's based on the double R. But this is, for me, is much more comfortable. But the first thing I would say that just sort of jumps out at me between on what I think between the single R and this is much more higher, and it's much more comfortable for me. If you're a shorter rider, you'll probably find, so when I say shorter, I would say sub 6 foot. You'll probably find that the single R is much more comfortable. Another thing as well, that I would say with regards to the brakes are pretty much the same for me, to be honest. The brakes on this compared to the single R, yeah, they're pretty much exactly the same. There's not like a massive difference. Check that I'm recording. Yes, I am. All Brembo brakes for me, they just all feel great. I had Brembos on my Triumph Speed Triple. I had 2 of them. The brakes were fantastic on that. My 1000RR, Brembos are just brilliant. If you see that logo, if you see that Brembo logo, you know the brakes are going to be fantastic. So the brakes are the same. With regards to handling, that's something that I would say as well, is the BMW S1000R, I would say, is, oh god, this is going to be difficult. I would say that the BMW S1000R is better for stability in the corners. Now, caveat to that, as I'm talking with you and thinking about it, is historically I've always had the Pirelli Diablo Rosso Corsa 2 tyres on all of my bikes, including the BMW S1000R. However, on this I've got the Michelin Pilot 4s, the Road Pilot 4s. These are not as good as the Pirellis, so I guess that is going to affect the stability in the corners. I haven't rode anything else, and when I say anything else I mean like the Pirelli tyres. I normally just ride with those tyres and nothing else, because I was out Sunday gone on this and I was giving it some welly in the corners, and I was just like, meh. You know, I'm really leant over, really giving it some, going into corners really hard and fast. And I found that this, I could feel, what's the word that I would use? It just didn't feel as agile. It didn't feel as planted as where the S1000 Singular, that felt much more sports-like. This feels much more Tourer-like, almost. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing for either bikes. It's just dependent on what you want. But if I was looking at handling in the corners, I would say the S1000 Singular just has it a little bit more over on this Gen 2 Super Duke. The other thing as well with this bike is the engine. This bike, in comparison to the S1000R engine, this is where this wins hands down, and why I own this bike. The engine on this is absolutely just different gravy. It's unworldly, and given how much it actually weighs as well, I think this is about 195 kilograms wet, which is light, and it's got 180 brake horse, 100 newton meters of torque at around about 7,000 rpm. Just insane. This is a naked bike in every sense of the word. Like, it's literally an engine, a radiator, and from my understanding, KTM have designed this bike to have as least on it as possible. It's like they ask the question, does that really need to be on it? No, we leave it off. And what that equals to is a super light bike with loads of grunt, and that's where this bike wins for me, and why I own this bike over the S1000R, is because this has got loads of grunt. Loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of grunt. Because when you're in the corners, coming out of the corners, this is just so effortless. So where I'll maybe lose, I don't know, I'm being pedantic when I say this, if I lose a second, well, not even that, couple of millimeters, a little bit of time, if I lose a little bit of time, which I would do on this compared to the Singular, in the corner, I can get around the bend quicker on the Singular. I will make up for that time by when I'm starting to lean the bike up and the grunt out of the corner. That's where this, I think, is like night and day difference compared to the Singular. So if I was racing against myself, I think that although this is slower going around the corner, coming out of a corner, this is like oh god, I don't know the word to use, insane compared to the Singulars, where the Singular, that, you know, it doesn't start getting lively until about 5,000 rpm, 4,000 or 5,000 rpm, and by that time, one of the frustrations I had with the Singular and the style of riding I do is that by the time I'd start having some fun, you get up to like 10,000 rpm, 11,000 rpm, and you run out of punch, and then you've got to change the gear. So for me, this wins in the engine front. This is definitely better in comparison than the Single R in that respect. As I say, I haven't ridden the 3rd generation Duke, and I haven't ridden, what generation would that be? I think it'd be the 3rd. Basically, I had the 2017 BMW S1000 Single R, so I haven't ridden the new generation of that bike. So yeah, I don't know. I guess again, when I watch motorcycle reviews, kind of like you at home, I listen to people talking about bikes, and through my experience of having so many different bikes over the years, I love them all. There's always something, you know, that's better on one bike, that's worse on another, and so on. There isn't a bike on the planet that is perfect in every area that is available for you and me. I just don't think there is. And like, I love this bike over the BMW S1000R. I'll have this bike, obviously. That's why we're looking at it. I really love this bike, but you know, there's good points that the S1000 Single R has that this doesn't. So again, it's all subjective, and it's dependent on you, like, watching this video. If you know, I always say with sort of bike reviews and looking at, you know, people like me talking that have owning these bikes, the best thing to do, if you can, is go out and ride them. Go out and ride them and make up your own mind, because there's going to be people arguing with me like, John, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. The BMW S1000R is the best bike of all time. But then I go into the like another forum, and they'll be like, the KTM Super Duke is the best bike of all time. It's like, it's just subjective, and it's dependent on the time of life you're at as well. Because I know one day I'm going to own the BMW 1200 GS, or maybe the RS. I really love those bikes. They're fantastic bikes. But anyway, so guys, I'm interested to hear from you. What do you think? Have you got any questions you want to ask me? Because I've owned both bikes. I've got an opinion about both. And yeah, put some comments in the comment section below. Again, if you like this video, please consider to subscribe. And even get your sausage finger, boop, 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 and like the video. Really, really means a lot. But apart from that, I will see you in the next one.